Namaste. Welcome, everybody. Let's start with a moment of centeredness in the heart. Please close your eyes. Keep your back straight. Relaxation. The centeredness in the heart. The joy of reconnecting with the depth of our being. Asking, who am I? And we gently open the eyes. Keeping a sense of presence, me here now. What a miracle. We will continue this journey in self-awareness, following the topics Arno already mentioned to you. I must confess that we come closer to the end of this course, and maybe you observed already that some topics which are now I announced in previous satsangs, then I didn't have the chance to present, like spiritual homeostasis or does everything happen for a reason, and I keep postponing because other aspects which I feel more relevant or very important for the unfolding of this understanding keep coming as an inspiration. And I try to find, and I would say now the main challenge is how to find the best ways of or the best topics that can be of a real interest for you. It was imposed, these 10 courses from the team from the marketing team, because they say it's good to have a certain number, a clear number, but definitely we can have much more to say about self-awareness. aspects which are, I consider, very, very important. So while the things are unfolding, I hope that we'll have still some time in the future to bring other topics, and maybe also a book about self-awareness will be written. I will start with a short recapitulation of what happened the last satsang, just for bringing the continuity. We spoke about taking decisions and about doubts, about the main doubt, which is doubting ourselves, because actually we have all these doubts and all this confusion because we live in doubt. And we live in doubt whenever we feel confused, or we feel that life is not fully flowing through us, or that something is dysfunctional in us, that the mind, the psyche, the body are lacking a sense of balance, of a center, that something is not coherent in us. In all these situations, in this absence of balance, doubts are coming. So we are living as a doubt, and then this doubt is haunting us in all the decisions we take. That's why coming back to the center is about freeing us and taking the decision for a different place. We also spoke about the comfort zone, and I mentioned the difference between living in the comfort zone and living in the center, or as a center. When we are living in the comfort zone, is simply a yes to likes and no to dislikes. So we need to get out from this, because we are simply trapped in just one extreme of the wing, either only yes to likes or no to dislikes. And the center is about integrating both yes and no, and this is the reason for which we need to go out from the comfort zone. This is why it's so limiting, because it develops so much attachments and brings us trapped. And I also mentioned that the comfort zone is the paradigm of the ego. So it is the ego that creates these extremities of either yes or no, but then it is the center, it is the heart that creates a different perspective. And at the limit of this ego strategy of going in extremes, attachment to extremes, we can find this borderline personality disorder, in which the intensity of such yes or no become so profound that we go out from the comfort zone, but in a state of suffering and even more intense pain. So we can say that there is an intensity that deepens intimacy, this sense of me, that is, as it happens in mystical experiences, as Patanjali also speaks, that states of samadhi are preceded by intensity, but by virya, by an intense energy. And we also have an intensity that separates, that creates a dissociation. And dissociation is, by definition, a separation from ourselves and from others. It's interesting that this dissociation, as a part of that borderline personality disorders, for example, is described on a continuum. So is seen as a continuum thing. I'm mentioning this in order to make you understand that such a state of dissociation is not just a concept or a label. You are either dissociated or not. The point is that people may come closer to this, or we may feel a sense of dissociation, which is somehow still in these limits of sanity for a while, but who would say exactly what is the limit and what no and what not? And then we may observe that this becomes unhealthy sometimes, when it's dangerously alienating, when we go in an extreme or another, when strong attachments are there, or obsessive thoughts are coming, or paralyzing fears, and so on. And this is when, we don't really be able to say this is acceptable or not. And all these problems, are characterized by unstable relationships, by distorted sense of self, by strong emotional reactions. But this essentially means a lack of stability, this lack of the center. In self-awareness, we learn stability. So in all these teachings, we are learning how to come back to this center, to not being identified to such extremes of the swing. Yes? But this is also a continuum. Exactly as this alienation happens as a continuum, in a similar way, this stability, coming back to the center, is happening as a continuum. So it is not that till yesterday I had a borderline personality and today I am perfectly fine and I will be like this. No? It's not a quantum leap, it's just a continuous flow there. And when I'm totally centered, or while I'm learning to become totally centered, I also learn what love, balance, compassion is. We also discussed last time about the role of petty tyrants for our comfort zone. And we define these petty tyrants as bully people we met in our life who tend to intimidate and persecute us. But then we extended that definition. Any circumstance, any problematic thing that then creates this stress and tension can be seen as a petty tyrant. But we learned how to welcome such circumstances, such difficulties in our life. And more than this, I mentioned the fact that what we are studying here, as we did 2 satsangs ago, is taking the opposite viewpoint deliberately, consciously putting yourself in a complete opposite perspective or point of view, and then also welcoming the petty tyrants, attitudes which are completely opposite with this tendency to cherish our ego. So all these are just ways of not allowing life to just be a place of reactivity. We are learning about this. It's not trying here to offer solution to a specific problem that happened to you in life, but it's more about learning a kind of strategy, a new strategy of self-awareness, a new strategy of this yes and no together. And because of this, we can see this journey as a place of investigation and learning, an experiential space of presence, a conscious exploration. So such emotions appear and we learn non-reactivity, and we learn how to explore all these old tendencies and then how something new can come there. So how to bring new fascinating perspectives in our understanding. And we find out how they can point to self-awareness, even pain, even difficult situations. As I said, be part of the solution, not of the problem. Of course, a bully person who tries to control, to manipulate, is not something that we will want to become, because it's also lacking self-awareness. But at the same time, the person that accepts being manipulated or controlled, or even reacts, so it's not even about accepting or not accepting. Even when you are reacting with fear or anger or whatever to that, this also means acting spiritually unconscious, not learning this balance, this stability. When you are self-aware, you are yourself. You know, this advice that comes sometimes in our life when we are, for example, very afraid to speak in the public, or when we meet somebody we would want to have as a partner or friend, and then it's a lot of nervousness, and then a friend will give us the advice, just be yourself, don't worry, be yourself, be yourself. While being yourself doesn't necessarily mean full self-awareness, definitely brings more freedom. Being yourself is what you know, what you knew when you were a child. This can happen also to old people when they are much easy in transcending social norms and saying honestly what they would think. But otherwise, we are trapped in this fear of expressing ourselves the way we are. And people who are afraid of being themselves end by following people who are not afraid of being themselves. So learn and allow yourself to be yourself. Now I'm going to speak about further explorations regarding the art of self-awareness. And we will look to the very core of this self-awareness, what this self-awareness really means. So now we'll not go in other techniques or learning other technical elements, but rather we will explore very subtle dimensions, so practical dimensions of this self-awareness. Well, the self-awareness is a condition in which there is a union between surrender and intense alertness, intense presence, which again can seem or may seem paradoxical. It's again this sense of integration of two apparently opposite poles, thesis and antithesis. Anyhow, when we give prominence to self-awareness, and when I'm saying in a decision, first and most important, be aware of yourself. Who is taking the decision? So come back to that I feeling. Or when we speak about this freeing ourselves from the petty tyrants, this doesn't mean in any way that we should deny, as some who tend to do, this role of judgment and rational thinking and intelligence, considering that these are just parts of the nasty intellect or the nasty ego and so on. Again, the key is not splitting, but the integration, the path of yes and no together. So it is not about the denying the role of the intellect. It is just that all that decision-making process is taken by whom? Who is taking the decision? It's not that personal me. When I am completely identified with this personal me, then this is the starting point of the decision making. It is that needy me or that fearful me, or by the center of our being, that from that equanimity, from that freedom, in which our personal skills, intelligence, memory, and so on become useful tools for expressing the heart. So it's not that if I'm coming to this centeredness, then I'm just in a transcendental world or in a complete emptiness, and then I shouldn't rely on the intellect. No. Before taking decision, who am I? And then in that centeredness from the heart, we are free to use all these tools, intellect, memory, different skills we acquired in taking a decision and in acting in our life. So while there is a surrender of the ego, in the sense that essentially is not what we are, is not a personality, there is at the same time volition, there is will, there is an energy, a pure energy of will, there is an intellect freed from personal reactivities and psychological conditionings, and this volition and intellect are working for the heart, are working from this sense of balance. Also, it should never be seen as a radical separation. I'm either in my heart or in my ego. Initially, it can be just a bit, as I'm sure we experience many times. We are still in our personality, but then a tiny insight is coming, or an intuition, and this is making us acting with a different spirit, from a different perspective. And this is like a partial surrender. It's not total, but an intuition. We let that sense of grace be there, and then the act is different. So again, it's not a radical separation between just ego, I am only the ego, or I am only the heart. And when I'm speaking about that surrender and intense personal attention, attentiveness, we should not see this not even at a dialectical interplay. It's not just a sum between these two, putting them together, but rather a fascinating union between them, in which surrender is the guide. So in order to understand that you can have, the intellect can function, and there is a pure will when we are centered in the heart, let's make a short meditation, a short experiment. Let's have a short meditation in which we try to explore this. So please close your eyes, keep your back straight, relaxation. We bring the awareness in the heart. The sense of surrender. While deepening this sense of surrender of the ego, of personal intentions. Try to observe the clarity of the intellect and the power of will, freed from emotional reactivities. So there is a depth, a pure sense of I, which can be expressed in this world with a pure intellect, pure will. From this surrendered attitude, you can, for example, contemplate your life. In a clear, lucid attention, intelligence, you can contemplate about future, with no needs and fears. Deep there is the stillness. And it echoes in this phenomenal world through the intellect, memory, will. And we gently open the eyes. This kind of exploration can be repeated in order to reassure the sense that in this integrality of our being, there is not a separation. It's not either that stillness or the intellect or mind. They are not at the same level. The stillness is much deeper. But all these qualities of the intellect, mind, body can act now from that space of purity. And then there is less fear. There is much more trust. Now we'll go even further and we'll try to come closer to this presence, what this presence really means. To be present, to be aware, to be self-aware. And we are going to speak about sacred presence versus mindfulness presence. So what this mindfulness presence would mean and what is missing there. So the real presence is a sacred presence. The different practices which we learned during this course of self-awareness or of recollection, you remember that capacity of integrating, of zooming out and acknowledging the unity of our soul, of observing a self-remembrance of ourselves, and then also self-observation, which is that classical mindfulness. So all these stages of a spiritual journey seem to involve a smaller or a bigger amount of effort, the effort of attention. It's a presence that requires me being attentive of the breath or of something else, and this requires a lot of effort and a constant effort, which is hard to be maintained for long periods, or sometimes it appears as being impossible to be maintained all the time. Being self-aware now may be understood by some as an act of just witnessing all that is. But understanding awareness just as representing the function of witnessing, so again, understanding awareness just as a witnessing, can still bring limitation and some confusions. For some, self-observation, so this psychological mindfulness, a classical mindfulness, and the witnessing attitude are forms of non-reactivity. Yes, you don't react to your thoughts, to your emotions, to and observe the breath and so on. So this observation for some can be just can bring a sense of separation. So we separate ourselves from what is witnessing. We are witnessing circumstances, thoughts, body, sensations, and so on, like in mindfulness meditation. And in the lower forms of such witnessing or mindfulness, when ego is still involved, such witnessing can lead to that dissociation, from that alienation from things, alienation from our soul, actually. This is when it's obviously a misunderstanding, and sometimes people in some Buddhist retreats may come to a sense of alienation exactly because of this confusion. In higher forms, this non-reactivity, this witnessing, when apart from this non-reactivity to emotions and so on, a surrender of the ego comes, then the act of witnessing appears as a withdrawal in nirvana, a withdrawal in that pure spirit somehow denying samsara, somehow denying any expression of the phenomenal world. And it may be what brings some people to what we name spiritual bypassing. So it's like running from the actual situation. But the real presence is more than just this non-reactivity, is even more than just a forgetfulness of the ego in an absorption in that complete non-reactivity. Is more than just a dry witnessing. On the contrary, it is about embracing the phenomenal world, embracing samsara, and because of this, it is very potent, it is alive, it is full of grace or spanda, this sacred tremor of the heart. So it's full of spanda. So this is the presence. And this is how we can make the difference between the real presence, which is always sacred, and the secular, profane, separating presence understood or felt just as a witnessing dissociation or witnesses withdrawal attitude. Here still a brief clarification is needed. The fact that some understand the concept of witness in such restricted ways doesn't mean that the real witness consciousness is something limited or less than real presence. It is just about this, I would say, experiential misunderstanding that we go there and we understand I need to witness that I need to separate from things, I need to dissociate, and this can create confusions when this witnessing means just a witnessing withdrawal, which may still maintain the ego, not the real witnessing unification. I remember a long time ago, a woman who had a big trauma in her childhood told me, well, for me it's not a problem to be detached from the body, to be detached from many things, because basically I don't feel my body. So for her, as a strategy of coping with those problems, she dissociated herself. And then she said, well, it's easy for me to witness. But that witnessing was not that full witnessing or that complete presence, that sacred presence I'm wanting to refer to now. So in order to understand the proper attitude in daily self-awareness, so even in not only meditation but in daily self-awareness, we should come to feel intimately in our whole being, and especially in our heart, this union between Shiva and Shakti, between pure consciousness, this pure awareness, Shiva, and an all-embracing flow of energy, Shakti. So the real self-awareness, the proper self-awareness, involves consciousness and spanda or grace, or what we would call in Christianity, Holy Spirit, the pure energy of love, freedom, beauty, playfulness. And this is a very important aspect which needs to be fully understood. Because when I acknowledge me here now, what a miracle. It is nothing excluded. It is awareness and wonderment. It is what a miracle. And it is vulnerability in this sense of surrender. And there is also a sense of flow. Me here now. What a miracle. Awareness and wonderment together. Pure consciousness and grace. Pure energy. As cosmic Shakti, grace is impersonal, but it has many forms. It is what is happening when, for example, in a meditation or even in a moment, in a daily life experience, we are overwhelmed by unconditional love or bliss or beauty in so many ways and in so many nuances. Mystical experiences are never boring because of Shakti. So mystical experiences are never boring. They are so different. They have so many nuances because of Shakti, because of this grace. That transcendent reality is always the same. But all that, oh, I felt in this way or in that way, that longing, all these are Shakti. All these are energies, and they are not just personal energies, but they have a different quality. Personal energies are just those energies mobilized or moved, put into motion by just personality, by our ego, my fears, my concerns, my attachments, and so on. While this energy of grace or of love can be revealed as cosmic because it flows. It's not mine in this personal sense, but is there. And this is, we can say, the very formula of sacred presence. Not an alienating, separating, witnessing, but a unifying. No? In Christianity and Judaism, we see the Holy Spirit as the divine force, quality, or influence of God upon us. Therefore, sometimes it is, often it is considered to be an external power of grace. And without this, we cannot know God. Or without this, without the Holy Spirit, we cannot know the touch of the real heart of Christianity, we would say, for example. But this is still a kind of dualistic view, which can be found sometimes also in Tantra, when people speak about this Shaktipat or the flow of grace, which can be offered only by the Guru or somebody else, or it's the grace of Shiva, and they will say somebody cannot be realized without the grace of Shiva. But this is not a predestined kind of statement is very true, but this grace of Shiva or God is in our heart. And when we open to that, we understand that this Shakti path, this Kundalini energy, or this divine flow is not something separate or doesn't require the approval of a higher separate power. It's always about us. Since our heart is divine, the real self-awareness is an act of opening to Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit, to the grace, to Kundalini Shakti, which is inseparable from Shiva, the Supreme Self that we are. So, grace comes from inside, or actually in this indivisible oneness, is not inside and outside anymore. In a similar way, the Tibetan Buddhism, so again, we refer to that two poles, consciousness and energy. In the Tibetan Buddhism, in Tantric Tibetan Buddhism, there is a very significant recommendation of a union between emptiness and bliss, which should be revealed in the depth of meditation. Emptiness without bliss brings a sense of dryness. Bliss without emptiness brings, they would say, or degenerates in attachments. So they should be brought in balance. They should be together, or they should be revealed as inseparable. There is a beautiful story about Gampopa, which was one of the great Tibetan masters, a disciple of Milarepa, the main disciple of Milarepa, and he confessed to his master that he can easily keep states of mental void for days, for hours, and even for days. So mental void, no problem. Milarepa answers that this means nothing to him, because keeping mental void without bliss is like grinding sand. Keeping mental void can still happen at the level of just personality, just ego. I can still build an ego in control of my thoughts. But the union of void and bliss is happening beyond. It points to a transpersonal experience. That's why it's like a guideline. Be aware, because with this, it's not a risk to remain just in the ego, just attached to bliss, to pleasure, or just stay in an alienating separation there. Such intimate union is translated in yogic terms as Sat Chit Ananda, pure existence, pure awareness, and pure bliss, unconditional bliss. Or in the tantric perspective, as the marriage between Shiva and Shakti, pure consciousness and pure sacred energy. The real self-awareness is about discovering this sacred marriage in your heart. Discovering this sacred marriage in our heart. So when we are speaking about me here now, Shiva and Shakti, this infinite consciousness and this infinite energy, grace, are together. It's a miracle which is happening. It's not automatically. If this would be so, we'll say, well, always Shiva and Shakti are together. Yes, in a way it's true, but experientially, we may experience states of alienation, we may experience states of being just lost in a state and forgetting about that stillness of being. That's why remembering and learning this art of sacred self-awareness is about this conscious integration. By practicing constantly self-awareness meditations, the Hridaya meditations, self-inquiry on a regular basis, we learn that in this domain of the center, there is indeed a synthesis between pure consciousness and pure energy. But of course, we need to be available for this. It is a sense of flow, of grace, of self-awareness, which means that a sacred, impersonal, universal energy, the spanda, sacred tremor of the heart, is not separated from the witness. These two terms become inseparable, or better said, are experienced as inseparable. It is like living in the presence of a deep mystery constantly. Me, here, now. What a miracle. In solitude and silence, this is more obvious or can be more easily revealed. At a certain point, we feel that there is not the mind or the personality that makes this effort of attentiveness or mindfulness. Because you remember, we spoke about this kind of challenge. Oh, it's an effort, it's a constant effort. But at a certain point, we realize that it's not a personal effort, but this is happening, is supported by an unlimited energy, by this grace or universal Shakti, by this Holy Spirit. The real present moment is a sacred moment in which, apart from the witness quality, there is a sweet taste of sacredness, of oneness. Now, the pressure of our actual anti-religious culture makes us, or make also some teachers, try to describe these spiritual realities in strict scientific or secular ways. No? The consciousness is just like the screen of a TV set and so on. But we should remember always that it is not about just grinding sand. It's not just about grinding sand. Self-awareness is graceful. It's an openness to this love and this flow of presence. It is rather, as Rudolf Otto, a great theologian, described this ultimate reality as the mysterium tremendum and fascinans. So mysterium tremendum and et fascinans, the mystery in front of which we are trembling, in front of which the heart is totally open, and there is fascination. It's an uncharted territory. You don't know what is there. It's a tremendous depth. And your heart is vibrating out of this unknown. And at the same time, there is so much fascination. And this is the real presence. The present moment is like this. It's the very essence of sacredness, of mystery and fascination. So it is important to realize that self-awareness is not an empty, alienating state of a meaningless void that is just there, but this self-awareness somehow carries in it, in a subtle way, beauty and love and wisdom and freedom and bliss. Essentially, this spanda, this freshness of grace. Sahaja, the naturalness, literally means samsara and nirvana born together. They are together. And this naturalness, this sahaja, is an awareness integration of transcendence and immanence, of emptiness and fullness. They are there, inseparable. If we just operate with concepts, of course, is hard to describe or come. It's not just a formula. But this me here now reveals this. And we can be even more precise by using the Kashmir Shaivism Triyun perspective. It is somehow similar with the Christian concept of Trinity. We have there Shiva, Shakti, and Nara. Shiva, pure consciousness; Shakti, universal energy. So we refer not to just energy, but universal, sacred energy, because Shakti is not just power, but is a sacred power. This is also very important to understand. And then Nara, or individuality. But this frame describes, this Triyun system describes precisely what is happening in the experience of self-awareness, when we are really self-aware. So in practice, when I'm really self-aware, which, as I said, is always a sacred presence, we can speak about these three levels. So at one level, so in this, I am aware of the present moment. All these three levels are together. At one level, there is this transcendental awareness, an infinite, bottomless depth, stillness. Is Shiva consciousness. This is one level. Then, on a different level, we can say, there is this awareness of grace, love, gratitude, compassion. In a word, the awareness of spanda, of this sacred aliveness. Because my heart is fully alive, vibrating. And this is the level of Shakti. So I have that total stillness. In this present moment is this absolute depth. And at the same time, there is this sense of grace. There is a sense of being taken, of a no effort, a no personal effort, but a universal energy. This energy of grace is a universal energy that carries me and is also present in this awareness of the present moment. I am flowing with it. But then there is another level, the third level, which is an unconditional embrace of everything comes to my perception. So it's a non-reactive embrace. So it's not just that I am in a transcendental state or in a state in which I go deep, but then I'm taken by grace and I'm oblivious of this, what is happening here. The present moment doesn't mean denying or ignoring the space in which you are, in which this body is, and your senses, body are experiencing all that is experienced. So this is the level of nara, of individuality. And all these three are inseparable. Of course, conceptually, they can be separable. We speak about these three levels, but in a way, and we can say in reality, they are just one sacred presence. That bottomless stillness. That pure subjectivity, Shiva. That pure me. That infinite grace, or that flow, that openness to Shakti. And not denying what is happening here. But what is happening here, of course, is seen not from that old perspective of me, a fearful person, but from that sense of presence. So, from a practical point of view, whenever we open to the present moment, realize that this involves an openness of the heart. So open your heart, and don't do this just from the place of personality. You having to exert, to make a personal effort of being mindful. I need to, catch the present moment. But from the real center, the surrendered soul, in which infinite energies are playing. Consequently, in the state of centeredness, of sacred pure presence, there is not just an intense alertness, just this mindfulness, which then needs to be summed up with a state of effortless. So mindfulness plus effortless as in a recipe in which we want to create a good food there, to prepare a good food. There is simple and natural union between them, the synthesis of intense alertness and effortless surrender in the present moment. So the common mindfulness, when you are aware of your breath or your walking and so on, still happens in the domain of personality, is done by a personality, is me watching my breath as a personality. It refers to a personal domain. My walking, my breath, my emotions, and so on. But the real self-awareness is done by a pure subject, by this bottomless stillness that I am, and refers to an impersonal domain. It means surrender of personality. It means humbleness. Humbleness, which comes from humus, not the Israeli humus, but the Latin humus, which means earth. Comes from the earth, to be like the earth. And C.S. Lewis had a very beautiful statement about humbleness. He said, humbleness is not thinking less of yourself. So it's not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Humbleness is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. It's good to remember this. When we are thinking of ourselves less, we drop the identifications with our thoughts, memories, different tendencies, and we focus more and more on God, on self-awareness. And this conscious interiority is unrelative, in the sense that it simply refers to ourselves in an essential dimension. Conscious interiority frees us from the need to compare ourselves with others, from this complex of superiority or complex of inferiority, because in this centeredness, in this genuine, humble interiority, we are not haunted by the delusion of grandeur or the delusion of the insignificance of our being. Is just as it is. And as an advice, as a practical technique that you can explore, whenever you walk on the street or in a park, keep this and explore this humble, conscious interiority. So meditate on this. What means me, I'm here in a humble, conscious interiority. And observe that whenever you see people, there is this old tendency, need to react, to judge, and to compare yourself with them. And now keep yourself free from this need to compare by just this humble interiority, this unrelative centeredness. Of course, this need to compare to others, or this impulse to compare ourselves with others, comes simply from this tendency to objectify ourselves. We objectify ourselves, we objectify others. That means we see us as objects. This is what I mean to this objectifying. When you see somebody is like this, is handsome, or look, this is he is fat, or he is stupid, or he is smart, is just a way of seeing that miracle of being as just an object. And because people are telling you, you are so special, you are handsome, you are like this, we tend to objectify and we consider that this is what we are. Seeing ourselves just objects, walking in a world of just objects. The forms of bodies, how they look, and so on. We have this tendency to just go into this, to explore, or to just focus on this objectification and not on this humble intimacy. Try to explore this humble intimacy and observe this tendency to compare, and come always back to this unrelative interiority. Let's take a break, and if there are questions, I'm ready to answer your questions. Yes, I see that is a question coming from Remus. Yes, Remus.
Good evening.
Good evening, Remus.
Sahajananda. Very profound, this subject. Thank you so much. Actually, thank you so much for all this course. It was a great opportunity for me to go further, and thank you so much for everything. I think you were very inspired with this course, and for me was a really gift. Thank you so much. I have a question about the first exemplification that you
Yes.
did in today. It was very profound. I felt you touch my heart. I think I have some issue about the emotion activities. Actually, you mentioned that we have to be free from that emotional activities.
Yes, personal emotional activities. Yes.
Yes, this is I think this is my issue, because I felt what you exemplified, but I try to understand in the same time. You mentioned about Shakti, about love and blissful, and you mentioned about that emotional activities. What is the difference between them? And if that emotional activities help us or not?
Yes, so here it's important to make the difference. Well, first of all, you don't need to be concerned, because even a personal energy, even if it's still a personal emotion there, in this coming back to the center, in this way of acknowledging, it can be gradually sublimated. This is what is happening for mystics when they move from this personal love to infinite love. No? In retreat, I give this example of Saint Teresa of Avila, giving those stages in which you love God with all your heart, and then you see that it's not your love, it's divine love. So it's not a problem. But the difference would be that you may be excited in a personal way. This is still when the energy has a personal connotation, which means what? I need somehow, there, in a subtle way, there is this sense, I need to keep it longer, or I want it more, or I'm afraid that it will leave me, or maybe I'm not prepared for this, or I'm not worthy for this, and so on. So all these kind of inner stories that can come, this make this energy personal. When there is no fear, when there is no personal reactivity to that, the energy becomes free. That starts having a quality of universality. So it is the same. It is the same energy, just that we don't put there, we took out all these fears, needs to, or this is my issue, or I have this challenge that I'm too excited or too. It's nothing wrong in have passion, as Rumi said, with passion, pray and work and love and make love. Don't be a dead fish in this ocean of God. So it's not a problem with passion. It's a problem when it is mixed with these personal desires and all these personal stories. So this is also a process which starts being purified. So the energy starts becoming more and more refined when you learn this non-reactivity, which again is not a dryness. This non-reactivity is not a non-reactivity in the sense of denying the energy, but is not reacting to a personal echo to that energy. So the energy is there and is taking you. So in a way, a reaction happens. You are in bliss. You are in grace. You see this sense of infinity. This is not a problem. The problem, we can say, or the challenge, is when we come with a personal kind of characteristic or attribute there. I want to hold it, or I'm afraid, or I'm like this or like that. And that is what is blocking. It's more of learning how to release this pure energy from what holds it, from all these old limiting patterns. And this is something to be learned. But yes, I wouldn't be worried about this. Yes?
Yes, makes sense.
Yes.
When you told me about no fear, I felt that state. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Are there other questions? There is another from Candy. Another question?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm sort of shy, but I have lots of questions that I've been saving, but we can just take a short time and you can tell me when is enough. But when you first started talking about the opposites and the dualism, and the Native American side of me said, oh, that's very Eurocentric. I want to be more holistic. I don't want to be dualistic. And so then, you came around and you're talking and explained all of that. But still, it's fascinating to me because I'm not very educated about this, but Hegel talked about opposites. Carl Jung talked about opposites and the idea of like reconciling opposites, or my Jungian analyst once told me, this was years ago, but about that you don't have to do one or the other, that you can hold the tension of the opposites so that a third will emerge. So
Yes.
something maybe that I'm not aware of that will come out.
Yes, but still this really needs this sense of centeredness, because otherwise it remains just a struggle. I'm struggling between two tendencies, or it's what a bipolar, personality is, either this or that, and I see there are two poles there. Yes, I can observe these two, but still I cannot reconcile because I am somehow missing this sense of presence, this sense of center. And this is what is developed through self-inquiry, through this constant remembrance of this depth of our being. Yes.
Right. So we have the centeredness, and that, in a sense, can reconcile the opposites and make it all more holistic so that we're looking at the whole rather than just the two opposites.
Yes. Which is not just theory, it's experiential. It's happening in us. It's happening in us. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So the other question, we have lots of questions, but the other question is, similarly, and even now when I hear this, I've only been at Hridaya for the 3 days on meditation. But when I hear this question of who am I, it immediately struck me as being very kind of like egocentric, Eurocentric, because the Native American side of me wants to think of we instead of I, and there's sort of it's like in Cartesian philosophy or for Euro-Anglo-Americans, there's the Descartes' idea of I think, therefore I am. But many people of color say instead, I am because we are.
Yes.
And so.
Yes. Well, I hope that you will come to our teachings more. And actually, it's not only about what is taught in Hridaya. We are teaching this depth of Advaita Vedanta, a very profound vision of non-duality in the Oriental tradition. And there we can understand that when we refer to this I, to this pure essence, that integrates, because it's the core of everything. There we unite. There I is we. There is not a separation. That's why in this looking for this, in this self-inquiry, looking for this me, who am I, just apparently, just in the beginning, seems like a sense of withdrawal and just wanting to know about yourself, because at a certain point, this me reveals itself as the whole ocean, as something unlimited. But again, this, of course, if we understand this I in the values of the Western cultures, is not about solipsism or individuality or this sense of me, ego, or special me. And then, of course, it's important to acknowledge others, and it's about we. But then when we go even deeper, we come to that, what I mentioned, that unrelated. It's not about me, it's not even about we. At the very core is the same consciousness, which manifests different forms, and any such relationships are not, it's in this way I try to create a very nice relationship. I acknowledge as much as possible another human being. I try to come in this full love and drop all my fears and drop all my traumas and so on, in acknowledging this you, and then we become a we in which less and less tensions are there. But in this self-inquiry, all these are dropping. It's not anymore even a matter of a relationship between a me and a you in this we, because it's incomparable much more. And it's a we with the sky. It's a we with the space, with the birds, with everything. And I'm going to speak about this, actually, to elaborate a little bit this further on tonight. Yes, but this is a topic way too vast to be explored only now. I cannot fully answer this, but in our teachings we are addressing this and we elaborate this. Yes, Candy.
Right. I understand. That was my other feeling of intuition, that it probably led to all of that.
Yes.
Was everything. I am that. I am divine. We are divine. The divine is us. Yes. All right. Thank you. I also have other questions about petty tyrants, but I'll save that.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So let's still go further. I would like to somehow conclude, and we can acknowledge actually 4 levels of conscious interiority, or different degrees of self-awareness. And for the sake of clarity, I'm going to speak about this, and then we will realize how this depth can go there. So again, please remember that Triyun system is 3-dimension: Nara, individuality; Shakti, universal energy; and Shiva, consciousness. So we have a first level of self-awareness, that of common mindfulness or self-observation. This is done by the mind, by personality, and refers to the domain of personality. The awareness of body, thoughts, emotions, breath, the act of walking, and so on. So I am aware, and I learn to be aware of this kind of things. And this me is still my personality. I'm not in a special state of consciousness. It's just that it's a first step which starts with this non-reactivity. So what is special in this mindfulness is just this non-reactivity to what is observed. When we start to get out of this rat race of unconsciousness, or which the social norms would impose to us, just running and reacting and in an unconscious way, I become mindful. That means I am not reacting, but still it's my personality, is this Nara, individuality. Otherwise, if we don't practice this non-reactivity and we just observe things, it's like looking in a mirror. No, but still it's a kind of tricky mirror that apparently is okay, so it reflects things correctly, we may say, but is deceitful still because lacks depth. It is missing a deeper dimension of ourselves. And I'm not referring now just to the physical form, but is missing in this self-awareness, is missing that depth. Is like keeping us in a suffocating space of concepts, forms, duties, social norms, and so on. So something essential is missing. The second level of self-awareness is of a presence as an act of pure awareness that is done by this pure I feeling. So this is still individual, but is this I which existed since I was born or since I remember of myself, and it will continue all my life. All these are happening to a me, to this sense of me. Freed from my story, my personality, this is this what Ramana will name aham vritti, this whirl of I, this simple sense of I feeling, and refers to itself. This self-awareness in this case is an awareness of the awareness. I am aware of myself while ignoring my thoughts, my emotions, my sensations. I just try to detach from them, and I become aware of myself. Yes? I aware of myself while ignoring sensations, emotions, thoughts. Yes? This is a second stage of, is more than that classical mindfulness, more than just a non-reactivity. Now I is not just the personality with my likes and dislikes, but a presence which is more and more purified. This is mostly a contemplative kind of self-awareness. We stay with the eyes closed usually, and is experienced mostly in meditation. Who is this me, this sense of me there? So this is the second level. Then a third level would be a presence that is an act of transcendental self-awareness that is done by an infinite, eternal subject. This is infinite me. So it's like when I am not anymore this me as individuality, as separate from others, but this sense of separation drops. So it's when this sense of individual me dissolves, but still is a self-awareness that ignores Shakti. This is, in the yogic terminology, will be named Nirvikalpa Samadhi, a state of cosmic consciousness in which are not vikalpas or conceptualizations. It's like a deep sleep, so no thoughts, dreams, images, just nothing, and still you are conscious. So the difference from a deep sleep is that you are conscious of that nothingness. No? This is also contemplative and is happening with the eyes closed. And then we can speak about the fourth level, this sacred presence, that is an act of transcendental self-awareness. So exactly as in the previous stage, we go deeper, 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 no attachment to anything, but embraces, includes also the universal energies, Shakti, grace, the Holy Spirit is there. A sense of oneness that doesn't exclude the world, the mind, and so on. So again, let's make a short experiment in which we are acknowledging each stage from personal presence to this sacred presence. So please close your eyes, keep your back straight, and bring your attention to the breath. Just observe your breath. This is when we are not reacting, the first stage, the classical mindfulness. I observe the breath. Now, I come to the next level, a refinement of me, a refinement of the object as well. I am aware of myself while ignoring thoughts, sensations, emotions, breath. It is still individual. This sense of me is pretty much present. But if I continue flowing in this pure attention on myself, no thoughts, no emotions, no personal reactivity, I am aware of myself, ignoring thoughts, sensations, emotions. Deeper, I'm coming to a transcendental self-awareness. There are no limits. Not even the idea of a me anymore. Transcendental self-awareness. Sense of limitlessness, eternity. Transcending even the notions of time and space. Nothing, nothing. Now, while keeping that depth, that abyss, we can slowly open the eyes in this sacred presence in which the universal energies and what is happening here is included. this gesture of openness to the world, of opening the eyes after being in that depth, so seeing not from the personality, but seeing from that transcendental self, is named Shambhavi Mudra in yoga, or the mudra, or the gesture, the inner attitude of Shiva. Because integrates both the inner and the outer domain, the subjectivity and the objectivity, Shiva and Shakti together. Now, another interesting experiential phenomenon here about this transition from the pure I feeling. I mentioned this sense of me when we drop these identifications with emotions and thoughts. More and more of a sense of me freed from this appears, which in yoga we name individual subjectivity. Subjectivity not because it's something relative, as people who say I am objective, I am very correct, and I'm subjective. Not in this sense. In yoga, subjectivity refers to this subject. Me, I am a subject. So this individual subjectivity refers to this individual subject, this individual me, which then can open us to a universal subjectivity. So me as unlimited. There is a consciousness. There is a presence, a me, that is not anymore a bubble, but is Shiva, is omnipresent. Is like when we feel that we are not limited to this body anymore. This would be, openness to this universal subjectivity. Now, this transition between the pure I feeling, this individual subjectivity, to the universal subjectivity, to Shiva, may happen in an explosive way. So it's like a revelation suddenly in a deep meditation. Is like an explosion of truth, and is like time and space are dissolving. You are taking in a storm of truth, and that sudden revelation that you are not just a limited individuality appears. But it can appear also as a continuum when we are aware of the whole spectrum of such transition. Ramana Maharshi, this great, dear teacher of us, master of us, speaks about bringing the I feeling, so this sense of I, back to its source, back to this infinite reality. And this is a fascinating, continuous process. Can be explored as a continuous process. Again, I'm speaking about the actuality of meditation. It's a experiential thing which we can experience in meditation. So there are no separate existential categories, me as a drop and me as the ocean, and then I am either the drop and or the ocean. So then the drop falls in the ocean, and then this is indeed a metaphor or an example, but it's not the reality what we experience in meditation. In meditation there is no moment, no such moment in which we may say, till here I was the personality, and now from now on there is just the ocean of pure consciousness, Shiva. So when you go deeper bringing the I feeling back to its source. You go into this source, and then layers and layers of this sense of individuality is taken. And we cannot make such a distinction for two reasons. First, because we are not anymore at the level of the rational mind to operate with concepts and to make such comparisons. Me, oh, now I am still me individual, look, I'm individual, and now look, I am infinite. You cannot come with such comparisons, yes? And the second reason is that there is no such threshold. It can be as a concept, a conceptual threshold, but there is no actual threshold in the genuine surrender that self-inquiry brings. It's just a sense of flowing deeper and deeper in this abyss. And since we accept that mind cannot function there, that at that level we cannot make a rational separation. Till here I was drop, now I am an ocean. So since that we accept that at that level mind cannot function, why would we want to find a clear distinction now? For what? What would be the sense of this? Would just create this separation. Now I am the bubble and a time will come when there will be the ocean. Yes, it's okay to think like this. But in reality, in that actual reality, in this journey of self-awareness, bringing the I feeling back to its source, is like more and more layers are taken gradually. We may see how it feels when the sense of time and space gradually become thinner and thinner. So again, let's experience this in a short meditation. Please close your eyes, keep your back straight. We bring the awareness in the heart. In the middle of the chest, a little to the right. This sense of intimacy, ignoring, detaching from thoughts, sensations. Just this joy of intimacy. And allow this sense of I go deeper and deeper. You may experience a sense of surrender. A feeling of grace. There's no effort, no need to try to do something. Divine energies are taking veils, relative reference points, this nakedness of being. Dissolving any reference point of personality gradually. And we stay in this I feeling, being taken by Shakti, divine flow of grace. In a transition from the drop to the ocean. From a limited bubble to infinity. And we gently open the eyes. This is, of course, something to be explored more and more, to be somehow integrated in our being in such a natural way. And then in this sacred self-awareness, all these are there, all this depth. So you realize it, this self-awareness, as an act of humble intimacy with ourselves. And this brings an unconditional faith in ourselves, in this pure I. It is so obvious, so clear. Similar to the faith that sun has risen, the faith in the sun that has risen. Not only because we see it, but because by it we see everything else. Exactly as we trust the sun, not only because we saw that as a phenomenon it was the sun rising, but also because by the radiance of the sun everything is seen. In the same way, it's a trust in the I, not only because I experience it in a meditation, but because now, by it, everything else exists. So don't look at for self-awareness just because we want to become more confident in our personal skills or so. In self-attention, in self-awareness, this presence goes to this flow of subjectivity on this pure I more and more. And because of this, we are not looking for reassurance, but for revelation. Yes? When we look at ourselves in such an unconditional way, not trying to support or to improve ourselves, but in this genuine looking for truth, it is such a unique breakthrough like we never had in our life. Our heart aches because of this astounding authenticity. May it be love or pain, doesn't matter. It is the same aching tremor of the heart. We are overwhelmed by this beauty of the sky, or of the morning sky, of the morning star, as Buddha was. You know, there is the story that Buddha, after meditating and committing himself to not move from that, near that Bodhi tree, after passing to different challenges, when the morning star appeared, the Venus appeared, that illumination, that realization was complete there, and he simply exclaimed. So, seeing the morning star, these were the first words Buddha said. And they were not about a formal teachings, and so it was just an act of self-awareness. He said, how wonderful, how marvelous, how perfect, how complete. Everything in existence is like this. So is a way of seeing from that depth, not from the personality. And as I said, the tremor of the heart, this truthfulness of our being is there. And we are overwhelmed by this beauty of the sky, or of the morning sky, of the morning star, as Buddha was. But we don't really know if this is what seems to be an external beauty, or if the sky is in our heart. And this is what is happening now in this self-awareness. Doesn't reject anything. Saying like Buddha, how wonderful, how marvelous, how perfect, how complete. It is a falling in love with ourselves, where we don't know if there are any limits for this sacred presence. We ask again and again, who am I? And any breeze feels like an answer, because there is nothing alien. Me, here, now. What a miracle. So having these milestones in what awareness, and this self-awareness, this sacred self-awareness, which is more than just awareness as witnessing or dry attention. I hope that now, and integrating Shakti, integrating the grace, I hope that with this kind of it's not, I cannot even name them tools. With this kind of integration, the present moment will be more and more like Buddha had spoken. As you see, again, we don't have time to go further. We wanted to go at least to speak about how it means to be balanced, what this balance means, and then how to be conscious of this central part of the swing. But we will approach it next time. I will conclude with a kind of poem of Chogyam Trungpa, a poem that speaks about self-awareness, about this awareness as an waking up force of the warrior, of the spiritual warrior. Again, warrior not in the sense of fighting with something, but in that sense of an unconditional commitment to yourself, this trust of the heart. So he said, when a warrior king presents a gift, it could be a naked flame which consumes the jungle of ego, or an ice-cold mountain range which cools the heat of aggression. Or, on the other hand, it could be a parachute. One wonders whether it will open or not. There is a further choice. Thunderbolt. Whether you are capable of holding it with your bare hands is up to you. So, my heartfelt child, take these gifts and use them in the way the past warriors have done. All these gifts are gifts of the warrior king, are gifts of Shakti, the naked flame that consumes the jungle of the ego, or dissolves the ice-cold mountain, or the parachute which creates that thrill, it may open or not. All these are pointers. The thunderbolt, hold it. And they can be gifts that can be used, so like pointers to that presence. Let's have again a moment of sharing together in self-awareness. Let's look at each other. So please turn on your cameras.